when working with other people, it's very constructive to understand how we tend to perceive situations when things go wrong.
Okay.
And there is a particular bias or a way we tend to think about things naturally that's called attribution error.
Okay.
And it's very important. Okay. Now, let's say you hire someone to do a specific task.
Okay.
And let's say, going back to the planning fallacy, it takes twice as long as expected. What do you think of that person whom you have hired to do this task for you?
You may think they're louse because it took twice as long as you thought it would.
Lazy person, doesn't know what they're doing, doesn't know what they're talking about.
Right.
Let's say you're building a house. Oh, stupid contractor, didn't plan right, didn't get the right material. All of these things. You blame it on a quality, a character flaw of the person you're dealing with, right? Okay. Now let's put yourself into the shoes of the contractor. And let's say, you're trying to figure out why this is taking longer than expected. And it's like, I was relying on a shipment of lumber from this particular supplier. They ran out, and so I had to, take another week and find another supplier, and we had to move heaven and earth to get, all this stuff.
Yeah, it's everything but your intrinsic value.
Exactly.
Right? I can
totally see. It's a matter of circumstances. It's not because you're a horrible contractor who doesn't know what you're doing, right? Okay. This is attribution error, we all do it all the time. Okay? So you're working with somebody, they don't do what they're supposed to. It's because they're horrible. They don't know what they're doing. All this stuff.
Idiot.
Character flaw.
Okay.
When something doesn't work out for you,
it's everybody else.
Yeah, it's the environment, it's other people,
it's
all of these external things.
Oh man, I can totally see that.
Yes. So this gets really tricky, okay? Because sometimes people don't know what they're doing, okay? But it's hard being on the other end of that to know whether that's actually true or whether that is a bias or you're treating someone unfairly.
I see that.
And so gathering as much data as you can about the situation. And this is where communication becomes really important, because unless, you as the person who's waiting for the house to be built knows that the other person ran out of lumber and they had to move heaven and earth to get it, all of those things. Unless you have that context, you'd probably be forgiven for thinking the contractor was, horribly unskilled or unprofessional or whatever. So that's where communication becomes really important.
Got it. And
I found personally, it's always worthwhile to give people the benefit of the doubt of it's not necessarily a character flaw. They're not, unskilled or unprofessional or whatever. They're doing the best that they can in the circumstances that they have.
Okay.
And, if something becomes a pattern,
then
you can, so if you have an employee who is always not doing their work or, not performing to expectations or delivering what they're supposed to, then you have an issue that needs to be resolved. But if you don't know, assume that it is a part of circumstances and try to figure out what those are before you write off an employee or someone you're working with as, hopelessly unskilled and unprofessional.
Yeah, it reminds me of a girlfriend of mine. For about 2.5 months, she was consistently late to work and in a horrible mood. And we were like, oh my gosh, she's going to quit. Things must be horrible. Maybe things are bad at home. Turns out she was pregnant and she was getting morning sickness every day and had a really hard time on the subway.
Right.
Okay, once we knew, it made so much sense. But for 2.5 months, we all assumed she hated the job and was going to leave. And you know what I mean? And it causes all sorts of stories to happen that you don't need to involve yourself in that kind of drama,
Right. So this is one of the cognitive biases that now that you know it exists, you can actually start to consciously compensate for it. So pay attention. When something isn't going as expected, look at and try to find out as much as you can about the circumstances surrounding that. And more likely than not, you'll actually find that there are very good reasons behind what's happening. That is attribution error.